Why can't our leaders take decisions on their own, but rather go to Europeans to take decision or, to make their decision? I think that bothers more on governance, more on economy, more nothing but lack of our self-confidence. Let us look at it from this point. I think from colonization, that most of people have remarked and talked about colonization. We went to them and demanded for our own independence because they were occupying our land and our country. Some, we got it soft. A good number of them, we fought. We collected our independence, our identity, our destiny. They did not give us their flags. They took their flag away. We maintained our flag or introduced our own flags. We have our culture and we have our tribe. They did not take our traditional and cultural values away. Yes, they did take along some of our traditional values in terms of materials, gold, diamond, etc. And let us not forget, Africa is not the only continent that went into colonization or that were colonized. One thing we must be very clear on this subject, the Europeans colonized other countries of the world. Which are some of them? Singapore was the same country colonized by the UKs, the Englands. Indonesia was colonized by the Englands. Malaysia was colonized by the Englands. The British lived in China. Portuguese lived in China, Macau, Vietnam, and other parts of Asia. In Arab Peninsula, the British lived in Kuwait, they lived in Saudi Arabia, they lived in Dubai, today called Dubai, the Emirates. They lived in Qatar. They colonized most of these countries. So my question to all of us, Qatar may necessarily not go to the European to take decision, but we go there to take decision. They have one mineral resources. You have multitudes of mineral resources. They gave them their flag, or they identified their own flag. We identified our own flag. They have built and developed their countries. We are not building our countries. We are still sitting, talking, crying over 71 years in total of African independence, and still saying that the Europeans, the whites, who are we? Who are we? Europeans have not asked you to come to take decision or for them to decide for you. You took your bag and went there and took decision. You went there and they told you that if you are coming for my money, bring your gold and diamond and I give you my money. They couldn't do that, and they haven't done that to the Singaporeans because Singaporeans collected their independence or gained their independence, and they said that we take the life into our own hands and change. That was the cause that they demanded for. What have we demanded for? We demanded for freedom, independence, self-destiny, self-reliance, total care of our own destiny. And yet, 71 years, 60 years, 40 years, 55 years, 80 years, 100 years, we haven't done that. But other parts have done that. Other parts have done that. And I'm saying, and I've said, that the story of Chinese is no different from the story of Africans. Chinese went under a severe difficulties of their times of world after World War, which even they supported Europe. Are we not aware that China fought against Italy, against Germany, and against the Axis powers? They fought with America. They helped America to fight. They helped UK to fight. They helped the British to fight. They helped the France and then other parts of Western Europe to fight. against the German Nazis. And yet, when they went back, the world turned against them. When Japan that fought against the West, Japan became a friend of the West. Chinese became the enemy of the West. They were isolated out of pains. They started building their country with a plan of 71 years. And now, 55 countries will line up and go to one country. 56 presidents line up to one president and seek for assistance. China called the bluff of Europe. China called the bluff of Japan. They called the bluff of India. But 57 years ago, Ghana independence is 63. Chinese presidency independence is 68. 68 years. And we are 63 years. Or no, 64 and 63. Why do we still say that Europeans are deciding for us? Unless we are saying that the books they read in Europe is different from the books we are reading in Africa. The cars they are driving in Europe that they manufactured is different from the cars that we have gone to buy, and we do not develop and then manufacture our own cars. So if you are not prepared to help yourself, then we refer back to the Holy Quran, we refer to the Holy Bible, that God helps those who help themselves. Have we helped ourselves enough? How does somebody come to your home and decide and take decision for you and your children? How does somebody decide how to treat your wife and your children? And they don't go to the other side and decide for them. This is what some of us are saying, that listen, it is a matter of a change, transformation of mindset. Identity is a different thing here. But identity, we have identity. Nobody has changed our identity. They occupied our land and colonized us. We did not colonize them. They left. They haven't asked, a topic I've tweeted, but then I think part of it comes in here, that no Swiss bank had walked to Africa to steal money from African bank. We take our money to them. And you take your money for them to make the economy, and you go to them for them to decide for you. Is it they are making, or we are making ourselves? Is the fault theirs or our faults? So my brother, we are not saying that we have to go and take decisions in Europe. We have decided to take decisions from Europe. They colonize you. They haven't come back. If we feel we cannot, we should raise our hands in the air. Structured racism, as some of us have preached. Structured adjustment, or call it institutional racism, institutional whatever against the black man. We are saying that, how long are we going to still sit and raise our hands in despair in the air and be talking about 400 years history? 400 years history is what we are still preaching on. But the same 400 years history, some went down, not also in slave trade, but they were also colonized. How do we take that one also? How do we take that one also? Singapore stand stronger than Europe. Were they not colonized by England? Were they not colonized by England? Vietnam has arrived, doing wonderful things. And the last 20 years, 25 years ago, it was the poorest country in the whole of Asia. Now he's producing rice and give you to Africa to eat. You have better land than Vietnam. Who has instructed? Is Vietnam also colonizing Africa? Are they deciding for us? Part and parcel of our troubles are our own making. So if you sell your product on a bad shelves, you get a bad price for the product. The way you position your product in a store is how it is bought, with price consideration, with quality consideration. Europeans are sitting in Europe. They come to your country free at will. You have to take visa and go to his country. You don't raise the same thing in return. Your president goes out there and plead. Your president is 70 years. European president is 38 years. He gives instructions. Go and follow. You come back and you're preaching about colonization. Why don't you surrender and go back to be under colonization? We've gone to the schools that they are also attending. The Oxford, the George Masons, Paris universities, the Stuttgart universities, other universities of the world. They have not barricaded Africans from attending. And for that matter, we have stolen enough money to take our children to those schools. Learned from what their children's learned. Better schools call it. How do we bring it back home? We bring back home to come and steal ourselves. We go out there to them and learn. The same school that George Washington, the same school Bill Clinton attended, the same school Tony Blair attended, the same school Angela Merkel attended, the same school have African professors lecturing them. We have an African who was the best and the first to do heart transplant, a Ghanaian doctor in Virkhof Krankenhaus in Berlin. He's in Ghana. He's a politician. Yes, they have not carried themselves and throw it on us, but we carry ourselves and throw it on them. But I'm saying that, how long do we sit down and say that somebody colonized you, 400, occupied your land, took your country, slave trade, bought you or sold you, whichever way you determine or you define it, 400 years ago. They gave you back your life 63 years ago. Others have made use of it. You haven't. Emirates got independence 1971. How many African countries? You can call up only the Central African Republic. Only the countries that were in the hands of the Portuguese that got independence around that time. And I'm referring to Cape Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, Mozambique, Angola, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau. They got the independence around that time. They got the independence around that time. South West Africa, everybody got independent before Kuwait. Everybody got independent before Dubai. Everybody got independent before Qatar. Everybody got independent before most of the countries in the South, in the Arab Peninsula. Is that what is happening there with one stream of only one resources? Why do Europeans go there and then they kneel before Arabs and give them respect? And yet they employ them to work for them and they sleep in the house. Saudi Arabians are sleeping in their homes. And Europeans, Americans are working for them. Have you seen Emirati working? If you're an American, you come to Saudi, to Kuwait, to Dubai, to do business. 51% goes to Emirati, who will not put in one dime. And yet, they got independence 1971. My country, Ghana, got independence 1957. Nigeria, 1960. Kenya, talk about all the French countries. They gave independence 1960, 61, 63, 1961, 63. You are older than all these countries. Are they still holding their neck to bring their money? They will do trade with them because they advance more than them, than you. Technology between Europe and Africa is 250 years. You can never bridge it today. You can't bridge it tomorrow. But you have the life in your hands. You have the key to your door. You have your key to your door. Nobody tells you not to develop your economy, but only you are prepared only to develop what? To develop your stomach. Nobody has told you to come and deposit your money in Europe. Steal the money as you will not stop stealing, but use the money to build companies in your country. You will solve the problem of unemployment. You go and give the money to Switzerland and they are building good bridges, modifying their homes, redesigning their countries. You're still talking about structured racism. We are still talking about what? Imperialism. Isn't the same imperialism applied on the Saudis? Isn't the same imperialism applied to the Southeastern Asian and Central Asia? Where is the imperialism on the Chinese? Where is the imperialism on Macau? That was developed, that was colonized by Portuguese. Why should not Portugal go as they are doing to Angola, collecting their money anytime they want? Why don't they go and do that the same to the Chinese Macau? It is the way we want our lives. It is the way, black man, African, we've conditioned ourselves. That would be the question, the answer for our brother who asked the European decision. And another question was then, why can't our leaders not talk about the issue of what is happening? They are quiet. You know why they are quiet? When they are opening their mouth, they don't know what to say. And if they say something wrongly against the United States, which they have admitted per their silence, that they are so superior, the white race government, they are afraid that when they talk, and they don't talk well, they cannot carry their bowls, and they cannot carry their plate, they cannot carry their pans, and they cannot carry their bags to go for credit facility. They cannot go for debt cancellation, so they are afraid to talk. That is the answer for that. They are not talking because they don't know what to say. And silence is what? Golden. If you don't know what to say, keep quiet so that you don't make mistakes. So your presidents, my president, all of our presidents are silent because they don't want to rock the boat. Because the next day, they are going to World Bank for loan. Are Arabs not killing Arabs? Syrians, are they not killing themselves? Are Turkish not killing themselves, Kurdistans? Are they not? Are whites, Tamil Tiger rebels, were they not killing themselves? Zapatista rebels, are they not killing themselves? Within Europe, Spain, they have two rebels killing each other, the Spaniards. Why do you call that one? Also racism, or that one you call it tribalism? They don't have tribes. They broke down the frontiers of tribes in the Cold War era. They eliminated tribes in all the Western Middle European countries. That is why you don't hear. Not that they don't know. They also had clans. Historically, they had tribes, but they broke down the tribes, which was not helping them. We have maintained our tribes. Have they taken our tribes away? Have they? No. The Basta rebels of Spain, what are they doing? They are killing themselves. Are they not having separatist group in Spain that want to separate from the mainland Spain? How do we call that one also? Didn't they have the revolution in the last 2 years where their leaders are also being jailed? Within Europe, Sinn Féin in UK, Jerry Adams is a rebel. They opposed the British. They were killing British. Irish killing British. Bombs were set in the 90s all over in UK. So what are we talking as if it's only when we are affected? That is when we have to. We condemn any form of violence against any humanity, regardless of your color. The race in this regard is not only referred race as in what? We are talking about race as in color. Yes, color would continue to exist. If we want to know the difference between the color, we should ask Almighty Allah. He created us. Why he did that? That should be the question for God to answer, not mankind. But much as he created all of us with one blood, with one heart, with one eyes, with one nose, with one ears. And yes, and yet some had colonized you and left and gave to your country. The destiny is yours. Who speaks better English than African presidents? Grammar, French, that you even copied from your colonial masters. Who writes good report than African presidents? Who has more ministers than African presidents? So if a president carry himself and go and live in Europe and be ruling his country from Europe, you call that European supremacy, thought you had to do that nonsense? If you leave your clinics and your hospitals run down, pregnant women on the floor all over Africa, dying, giving birth on the floor, and you go and carry your money and deposit in a white man country, it is also supremacy, engineered, orchestrated, instructed, ordered by European. Let's learn, please. The last question, you talked about While some Europeans, Tata, some of the questions, maybe when it's too long, I lose at the kind of focus in writing. But he asked 3 questions. The first 2, I think I've answered. Let me switch back to some of the questions that was very prominent and that constantly feature. And one person asked,
yes,
difference between tribalism and racism. It is, and it will continue to be an interesting question, and the answer